Hi, this is Ali Arango of Little Guy CGI. What you're going to learn in this tutorial is how to make this mech that you see in front of you. In this tutorial, you're going to learn how to box model basic shapes, then move those basic shapes into position to block out the shape of your mech. You will learn how to make attachments to your mech, such as guns, missile launchers, as well as arms. You will learn how to work with a bevel modifier to make your mech look smoother. You will also learn how to lower down the polygon count of your mech to make the polygon count more ideal for future rigging as well as animation work. You will learn how to work with various nodes in a shader editor to color your mech. This tutorial is taught in a step-by-step narrated fashion. As I work my way through the tutorial, I try to say as much as the keywords that I'm using as possible. I also try to not only say what I'm doing, but why I'm doing what I'm doing. I hope that you enjoy working your way through this tutorial, and thank you for watching. If you like video tutorials that are taught in a step-by-step, fully narrated fashion, then please give this video a like, as that will make the YouTube robots happy. Hi, this is Ali Arango of Little Guy CGI. Today I'm going to show you how to make a mech in Blender 2.83. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is press the N key. I'm then going to go to the right, select View, and then go to this 3D navigation. I'm going to select the disclosure arrow. I heard somebody describe it like that. I like how that sounds. What I did was I just set up this 3D navigation just so I can just use the mouse to get around my views just by left clicking. I like having this set up. To be able to see this 3D navigation, you need to go to Edit, User Preferences, Add-on, should be at the top of the list. Put a check mark next to 3D navigation. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is go to the front view. I do that just because I want to know where I'm starting at. When you look to the upper left, you can see which perspective you're in. With this cube selected, we're going to go to the upper left. We're then going to go to Edit Mode. Okay, we're going to right click on the cube. We're going to select Subdivide. We're going to look to this menu that popped up, this Subdivide menu to the lower left. We're going to go to the number of cuts. We're going to take this to 2. We're going to take the smoothness all the way up. And I'll just left click to lock that in. Okay, I'm going to press the O key to turn on the proportional editing tool. When you see this blue circle up here, you can know that the proportional editing tool is turned on. When we look to our upper left, we have vertex select, edge select, as well as face select. I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to select this face. With this proportional editing tool turned on, what that allows us to do is to manipulate more than one vertex, edge, or face at a time. I'm going to press G. When I press G, the main reason why I did that was so I could see the circle of the area of influence for the proportional editing. So I'm going to right click to get out of that, so I can hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm going to press G again. Then I'm going to press Y. So G means move. So I'm moving on the Y axis. What I want to do is pull this face forward. As I pull forward, I'm going to roll my mouse to increase the area of influence. As I do that, you can see the mesh is adapting, growing. Very useful. Kind of growing, like the mesh basically moves itself towards this face as you increase the proportional editing using the proportional editing tool. Okay, basically making this mesh, we want to have 8 different pieces to the mech to start off with. We're kind of concepting as we're building the mech. Okay, I'm going to press the O key to turn off the proportional editing. I'm then going to left click on nothingness, deselect. I'm going to select here, hold the middle mouse button, rotate, trying to get a good view where I can manipulate the pieces of the mesh that we're going to be working with. With this selected, I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click, go to the upper left, go to the move tool. We duplicated this face. That's what just happened. Doesn't look like we did anything, but there's a duplicate of this face on top of the old face. So now I just pulled that duplicate out. I'm going to press S to scale to make this bigger. And what I'm going to do now is press E to extrude on the X axis, and I'm extruding that that face that we just made out. I'm going to left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to select this face. I'm going to hold shift, press D, then right click. So I duplicate that face. Now I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis like this. Left click to lock that in. Now I'm going to press E to extrude on the X axis like this. Pull this out like that. So left click, so we have our these three pieces going across up top here. We're going to select here, hold shift, press D, right click. So we duplicated this. We're going to press S to scale this up. Then we're going to press E to extrude on the Z axis and bring that down like that. Okay, I'm going to left click to deselect. I'm going to select this face right here, hold shift, press D, right click. Bring that face down like that. I'm going to press E to extrude on the Z axis like this. Zooming back. I'm going to make that longer like this. I'm going to hold control, press L. Then and when I press control L, what I had was this face selected. Control L allowed me to select the entire mesh. I'm going to press S to scale this down like that. Push this in. We're basically working on a leg right now. I'm just zooming back to get a better view. I'm going to go to this hand here. These are controls where you can... I like these controls because you can manipulate your view in Blender. By left clicking here, you can rotate. By left clicking, dragging up and down, you can zoom. You can pan right here. You can go to the camera view right here. You select this, you can go to into orthographic view and out of orthographic view. I really like these controls a lot. So I'm going to left click and pan up like that, or like you just saw. Okay, what I'm going to do is with this selected, I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click, move this down, hold shift, press D, right click, move that down or position it right there, hold shift, press D, right click, bring this down. So now we're going to press S to scale on the Z axis like this. I'll press S to scale that up some like that. I'll move this up some like this, then left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button and rotate to the side. I'm going to take the hand to pan up. I'm going to zoom in. We're on face select. I'm going to hover here, press L. I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis. Like this, kind of like the thigh going down. I'm going to left click, nothingness to deselect. Press L while hovered over here. And then I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis. Like this. Then I'll move this up like that. I'm going to left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hover here, press L, move this out of the way. This is the angle that I actually want. So I'm going to select here, hold shift, press D, right click. Bring that down like that. Left click to deselect. I'm going to hover here, press L, move this up, move this forward, press S to scale on the Z axis like that. Left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to go to the lower right, go to front view. I am then going to go to the upper right to go to wireframe view. Coming here because if you normally selected the front part of this mech without being in wire view, you would select just the front, you would ignore the back. There's multiple ways you can work with a mirror modifier in Blender now. There's an auto mirror modifier that will pretty much with one click set up what I'm about to do here. There's also a new addition to the mirror modifier called bisect that also, well, in a sense, lets you skip what I'm doing here. I'm using this method because I know it works. It tends to cause me the least issues. So with that being said, I have face select here, so I'm going to hover here, hold Control, press R. By pressing Control and R, it let me put a loop cut in. I left click once, left click a second time to lock that in. So that loop cut's going to allow me to cut this part off. I'll hover here, hold Control, press R, left click once, left click a second time to lock that in. I now have 2 loop cuts. I'm going to go to Face Select, hover here, press B for Box Select, go slightly past this midway point. Lets me select all of that geometry there. I'll go back to solid view with this geometry here selected. Now I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu and then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to go to the upper right, go to object mode, go to the wrench, which is where our modifiers are at. Select the arrow, select mirror. I'm going to select this upside down triangle, makes it look like our mesh is our virtual geometry that's made from our mesh is actual geometry. I'm then going to go to this clipping, put a check mark next to clipping to turn that on. That'll keep the mirrored or virtual geometry connected to our actual geometry. Okay, I'm going to go to the upper left, go to edit mode. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to get this thigh piece right here. I have face select on. I'm going to select here by left clicking. I'm holding them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm holding shift. By holding shift, I'm able to select more than one object at a time. Left clicking, right? So now I'm going to press shift D. I duplicated. I tend to move to the side slightly just so I know I duplicated the object. I'm going to right click to deselect. Then I'm going to left click. Well, right click to get that geometry to jump back into position. Now I left clicked after that to deselect. Okay, so with that done, I'm going to hover here, press L. And then I'm going to press S to scale down some, like that. What I'm doing here is I'm going to press S to scale more, like that. Fairly easy way to get detail for the leg. I want to move this block up that way, and see how that, like, my move tool will let me go straight up in this way, but not that way. So what I can do is I can go to the transform settings here, select normal, and then now my I can take this and I can push like that to get that where I want it to go. I'm going to left click to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in, select here, hold the mouse button, rotate, hold shift, select here. Holding shift allows us to select more than one object at a time. We're going to go to face, look down to where we see solidify faces. We're going to select that. This menu pops up to the lower left. We'll take this, slide this to the side. This is a nice option to have, as well as extrusion. We could have extruded to do this. However, in this instance, I'd rather use this solidified, which I like a lot. I'm gonna left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna hover here, press L, hold shift, press D, right click. So I duplicated this box. I'm gonna press S to scale. You can't see that. I'm going to move that box forward like that. I'm going to zoom in, go to the hand, to pan, hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'll have face select on. I'm going to select this face here, pull that face down like that. I'll hover here, press L, hold shift, press H to hide so I pressed shift H, okay? That let me hide everything other than what you see here, which lets me easily grab this face here. I'm going to go to the transform option, set this back to global. I'm adjusting that. So to bring everything back, I'll hold Alt, press H. So now everything is brought back. I'll hover here, press L. Push this forward, so like that. I left click to deselect. Here I'm going to face select here, go to here, transform settings, go to normal. Using this to scale this down in a sense. I'm going to select here, hold shift, press D, right click, move this up like this. I'm going to press R to rotate on the, not that, on the Y axis like this. Move this down some. I'll go to face, solidify faces. Really do like that a lot. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to go to the hand, pan up, hold the mouse button, rotate. I'll hover here, press L, turn the transform back to global. We'll press S to scale on the X axis like this. So I'm looking to scale this down so it looks like it could fit inside here. Very similar to before. I'm going to we have face select on. I'm going to select here. Hold shift. I'm pressing shift now. Press D, right click. So we duplicated these faces here. So now I'm going to hover here, press L, press S to scale this down. Scale it down more. I'm going to hover here, press L, hold the mouse button, hold shift, left click. I'll go to face, solidify faces. Nice. So what we're going to do here is hover here. For this, we're going to press S to scale on the X axis. We want this to be wider than the rest of the leg. So we're going to select here, hold the mouse button, hold shift, select here. Let go of shift. I press shift so I could select more than one object at a time. I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click. So I duplicated those two faces. So I have two separate faces. That's what I've been doing here. Then I left click. It looks like I didn't do anything. That's all these the pieces I work with. It looks like nothing happened, right? But this is a duplicate face here. This is a duplicate face here. The other face is still there. And what I do now is I hover here. I press L, right? It still looks like I'm like selecting this, right? However, when I duplicate the faces, they're right on top of the old faces. So now when I press S to scale down, you can see like here's those duplicated faces here. Let's go that down more. So then I press L, hold shift. Holding shift, left click. So now I'll go to face, solidify faces. So I want this to be even thicker. So that's been 0.19. It's working out pretty well. Now we have that. So take a look. can see we already have a little, complexity going on just by using that fairly simple operation. Let's make our mech easier to work with. So what we're going to do, look to your upper right. These are our viewing options, right? So this is wire, solid. This is the solids where you do like a lot of your work. This lets you see colors, which is your viewport shader. This is your rendered. We're in the Blender's EV rendering engine. This solid, one thing that's nice is, see how everything looks here? We can make things look nicer by left-clicking on this arrow, selecting matte cap. We're going to select this circle, select here. Then after doing that, what we're going to do is we're going to select cavity. This is gives everything a sharper, kind of harder look, highlights the edges. Nice to work in. I like how it makes the look of things. Okay, so for here, we're gonna hover here, press L, move that up. Slightly. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna press S to scale on the Y axis like that. I'm gonna hold shift, press D, right click, bring this to the front. Okay, I'm gonna press L to select this again, S to scale on the Y axis like this. Then I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I was going to use this. I might still use this for something. I'm going to select this for now. However, I'm going to use the technique we have been using. I'm going to select here, hold the mouse button, rotate, hold shift, select, hold shift to deselect there, select here. So now I'll hold shift, press D, right click, doesn't look like I did anything. I made new geometry, I'll left click, hover here, press L, press S to scale down like this, left click to deselect, hover here by pressing L, hold shift, select here, go to face, down to solidify faces. Good. Oh, left click to deselect. Okay, I'll hover here, press L, hover here, press L, push this forward. This. Press S to scale on the Y axis like that. I'm gonna hover here, press L, move this forward like that. Okay, with D selected, I'll hold shift, press D, right click, bring this back. And then what I'm going to do is press R to rotate on the Z axis, 1, 8, 0, and then press enter to lock that in. Push this in like that. Now left click to deselect. Hold them in the mouse button. Taking a look. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're actually going to hover here, press L, we're going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then we're going to choose faces to delete. We're going to hover here, press L, hold shift, press D, right click. We're going to bring this up, position this about here. We'll press S to scale this up. because we have a mirror modifier on here, we can actually pull out to the side like that. Left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna select here and make this even wider. I'll select here. Make that wider as well. I'll left click to deselect. I'm gonna select here. Bring this down. Something like that. Okay, have this selected on the bottom. I'm gonna press S to scale on the Y axis. Like that. I'll press S to scale on the X axis. Like this. Left click to deselect. Select the sides here. Push that in some like that. I'll left click to deselect. I'm holding the middle mouse button, taking a look. So what we're going to do is select here, hold shift, select here. We're going to hold shift, press D, then right click, we'll left click to deselect. Very similar to what we've done before. We'll hover here, press L. Hover here, press L. We'll press S to scale on the X axis. That. I'll select this, push this in something like that. Select here. I'll push this in like that. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna select here, hold shift, hold the mouse button to rotate. Now I'm holding shift to select there. I'll go to face, solidify faces. So for here, I'm gonna select here, push this towards the center like that. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I don't like how this looks, so I'm hovering over this. I'm gonna press L, then press X to bring up our delete menu. Choose faces to delete. Hold them the mouse button to rotate. Select this face. Hold shift. Press D to duplicate. Shift D to duplicate. Right click. Pull this to the side. Go to face, down to solidify faces, and then I'll take the thickness up. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna hold them the mouse button. I'm gonna hover here, hold Control, press R, left click, move this. I press Control R to put a loop cut in, and then now I'm sliding the loop cut, or I slid the loop cut. I'm gonna slide it slightly more forward. Left click to lock that in. Left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm on edge select. I'll select here. I'll push this in like that. Then I'll left click to deselect. Try to deselect. If you want to make sure you absolutely deselect, you can hold Alt, press A, and you'll deselect everything. Okay, I'm gonna hover here, hold Control, press R, put a loop cut. I left click once, because I left click once I can move this loop cut, so I'm moving this up to about where the other lines are at. I'm gonna left click to lock that loop cut in. I'm on edge select, selecting this edge here. Push this edge down like that. Now left click to deselect, hover here, hold control, press R, put another loop cut in. I move my mouse to change the loop cut so it's going that direction. I left click once because I left click one time I can move the loop cut, moving this to the side. And then when I left click a second time to lock that in, then I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I still have that selected. I'll select again. To deselect, I'll go to face select, select here. I'm going to push this back some like that. I'm going to hover here, hold control, press R, left click once. To put a loop cut, I'll move this loop cut up slightly like this. I'll left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. Left click to deselect, select this edge, push this edge in like that, and then left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna go to face select on the upper left, select here. Then what I'm gonna do is press E to extrude, right click, the extrusion is still in place. Because I left the extrusion in place, I'm going to go to edge select, select here. I'm able to pull up on that geometry. Like that. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'll go to face select, hover here, hold shift, select there. I'm gonna press E to extrude, right click, push this out slightly like that. And I left click to deselect, hover here, hold control, press R, left click once, left click a second time to put that loop cut in. I got a face select, select here, hold shift. Okay, select here as well. Push this down like that. Select here. Hold shift. I'll select here. Then I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu. Then choose faces to delete. I'll thinking right now. Zoom in. Select here. Oops. Yeah, might as well select the back as well. I want to work with this piece here, so I'm going to press L, hold shift, press H to hide everything other than what we're working on. I'll press C to select this here. Right click to deselect. I'll go to face, solidify face. Let's come out this direction. Okay, so I could have extruded there. I like these solidify faces. I'm gonna hold Alt, press H, left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna select here, press E to extrude, right click, press S to scale. Put that about there. Take the hand, pan to the side, hold the middle mouse button to rotate. I'll press S to scale on the Z axis like this. Then I'll press E to extrude, right click. Bring that in like that. Then left click to deselect. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel back. I'm going to hold control, press R, left click, move this loop cut down, which is what I just put in there. I'm going to go to face select this face, pull this out to the side like that, then left click to deselect. Okay, I don't want holding the middle mouse button to rotate this to be quite that pointy, so I'm going to go to edge select to my upper left, select this edge, roll the mouse wheel to zoom back, pulling this edge out just so there's not so much of a point. I'm going to left click to deselect. I want this side to look like this side, so what I'm going to do is go to face select on the upper left, hover over this piece of mesh, press L, press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. Okay, this technique I'm going to use here, I'm not sure how long this has been in Blender for. I noticed this as far as I can remember a couple days ago. I'm going to hover here, press L, or however long it was, a little while ago. I'm going to select here. Before I do anything else, I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click. So I duplicated this geometry, even though it doesn't look like I did anything. This is new geometry. So I'm still selected on that duplicate, right? So I'm going to go to Mesh, Mirror, and then I'm going to go down to X Local. So now the duplicate I made is basically a mirrored version of that piece of geometry, which works well. So I left click to deselect. Taking a look. I like in Blender how you can left click on nothingness to deselect things. I also like the fact that you have Alt A to absolutely make sure that you deselect. Hold the middle mouse button, taking a look at what we have. Okay, I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to select this face right here, hold Shift, press D, right click, move this face down like that, press E to extrude, right click, push that face out like that. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to go to the upper right, select the hand to pan up. I'm going to select here, press S to scale on the X-axis like that. Let's select the whole thing. And press S to scale on the Y-axis like this. And now I'm going to left click. I am going to hold control. I pressed R, so I have a loop cut. I left click once. When I left click once, I can move this loop cut. So I'm going to move this loop cut up. Left click a second time to lock it in. Left click on nothingness to deselect. Typically when I'm on edge select, I try to deselect. I still have an edge selected. Okay, I'm going to hover here, hold control, press R, put a loop cut in. And I move the loop cut slightly to the side. I'm going to left click to lock that loop cut in. Hold the middle mouse button to take a look at the loop cut. I'm going to hold control, press R, left click, move this loop cut up slightly, left click to lock that in, left click on nothingness to deselect. There's that edge still selected. Okay, I'm going to go to the upper left, go to face, select this face, hold Shift, select this face, press X to bring up our delete button, then choose faces to delete. So normally, if what I did there, I would have to fill this geometry in. However, I'm like, why do that? So I'll just hold Shift, press D. I selected this shape, which is basically what I wanted in the first place. I'll now left click on nothingness, deselect, hover here, press L, press X to bring up the delete menu, choose faces to delete. I'll hover here, press L, go to face, solidify faces. So now I have that shape without having to do extra work. So I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, I will hover here, I'll press L, I'll move this up, position it about like that. I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, I want to add some detail here, so I'll select here, hold Shift, press D, right click. I'll move this down some like this. Go to edge, select the edge there. Push this down like that. Left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, what I'm going to do is go to face select, hover here, press L. I'm going to hold Control, press R to put a loop cut in. I'll roll my mouse wheel to get multiple loop cuts. I'll left click a second time to lock that in. Go to the upper left, go to face select, hover here, press L. I want to select every other face. So I'm going to go to select, check or deselect. Nice thing to know about. I'll hold Shift, press D, right click. I just duplicated that geometry there. I'll press E, right click, move this geometry out, hold Control, press L, move this geometry down, left click, hover here, press L, press X, to bring up our delete menu, choose faces to delete. I'm going to press C for paint select, select what I can see there. I right click to get out of paint select, I'll hold Control, press L. The reason why I did that was I probably selected faces that you can see, but not what you couldn't see. So when I pressed Control L, I was able to select everything. Now I'll move this up like this. Then I'll move that back like that. Move that up slightly. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'll zoom back. I'm going to hold Shift and then right click. Put the 3D cursor there by holding Shift as well as right clicking. Reason why I did this is because in Blender, objects tend to come into Blender where the 3D cursor is at. So I'm going to hold Shift, press A. I am going to bring in a cylinder. I want the cap fill faces to be a triangle fan. Let's take this down some. So we have this for 20. Trying to think if I actually want to use this. I do not think I want to use this. I think I'm going to press X. Sorry about that. I'll go Shift A. I'll bring in a cube. Press S to scale on the Z axis like this. And then I'll right click on the cube, select subdivide. Subdivide it again. Take the... Okay, that's not what I wanted. That's interesting. Okay, that's like what we first started off with. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll select here, right click, hold shift, press D, right click. You might say, why didn't you want a cylinder? Cubes generally are easier to work with. I selected that by pressing L, press X to bring up our delete menu, choose faces to delete. I'll hover here, right click, go to loop tools and select circle. There we go. So now we have a circle. So we'll use this for cylinder shape instead. So we'll select here, I'll hold Alt. I'm on edge select. I went to the upper left, selected edge. Now I'm holding Alt. When I left, okay, I'm not selecting hold this. I'm holding Alt. Alt a lot of times will let you select the whole loop. This won't. Holding Shift as well as Alt. I let go of Shift as well as Alt so I could rotate the view, so I could see. Holding Shift as well as Alt again. This is in the way. I'm letting go of Shift as well as Alt. I'm selecting here. I clicked here just to get that manipulator out of the way. Holding Shift as well as Alt again. Still holding them, so that let me grab that entire loop. I did that so that I can, now that I have that selected, I'll select here. I'll press E to extrude, right click. I'll push this straight down like that. So we have a cylinder-like shape that has a the cylinder shape that we made from the cube is very easy to manipulate. So I'll left click to deselect. I'll hold Alt A to totally deselect. Okay, I'm going to zoom back, hover here, press L, hold Shift, press D, right click. So I duplicated this object. I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. One of the nice things about making mechs is you can use multiple pieces over again. Okay, for this to walk correctly, I'm going to go to the upper left, left click on nothingness to deselect, hover over this, press L. I'm pushing this to make the back of this match up with these pieces here. So we can have a joint so this can walk correctly. So we'll hover here, press L, we'll move this up a similar way. So I'm selecting here, holding Shift, rolling the mouse wheel to zoom back. There we go. So I'll left, well, I didn't left click. I'm left clicking now to deselect. Okay, I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hold Control, press R, left click once, move this loop cut up to about here, hold Control, press B. This activates something called bevel. So I'm going to left click to deselect. I didn't left click to deselect, left clicking to deselect now. Didn't need to deselect. Brain was getting ahead of me. I'm going to go back to face select. Hold Alt, select here, press E, right click. Is this where I can I'm going to hold the mouse button and rotate. I'm going to hover here, hold Control, press R to put a loop cut in. Roll my mouse wheel one time, left click once, left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. Press S to scale on the Z axis like this. Press S to scale on the Z axis, more like that. Then I'm going to hold Control, press B to bevel. That was Control B that I pressed for bevel. Very useful, by the way. Okay, so now I'm going to left click to deselect. I'm going to go back to face select. Hover here. I'm going to hold Alt. By holding Alt, I can select all of the loops there. I'm still holding Alt. Now I am holding Shift as well as Alt, as in right now. Select it there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in so you can see. I'll go to the hand to pan. I'm going to press I, which is inset, right? So I'm going to move my mouse up just slightly up. Then I'm going to left click. I moved slightly up so I could get this menu here, right? So now we have this depth, which is nice. So that we can just take this to the side and nicely go in. Then we'll left click like that to deselect. Okay, so now we have this shape here. We'll hover here, hold Shift, press D, right click, pull this to the side. Just we have that. We'll select here. Well, we hovered here, press L. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click, move this to the side. I'm going to hover here, press L, hold Shift, press D, right click, move this back. So this one here, what we're going to do is hover here, press L, move this one down. Like that. Okay, with this selected, we're going to press R to rotate on the Y axis, 9, 0, and then press Enter to lock that in. I'm going to hold the mouse button to go to the side. I didn't know that this had a opening there, so I'll go to Edge select, hold Alt, select that whole loop. I'm going to hold Control, press F. This brings up our Faces menu, and then we're going to select Grid Fill. Grid Fill nicely fills that in. We'll left click to deselect. Still with that edge selected, I'll hold Alt, press A. Okay, that's going to be one of our major pieces for joints. So we're going to select here. We're going to move this back. Oops, don't touch. I almost did. Because of the clipping modifier will give you issues. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but I'd rather not do it. So we're going to move this here. In between here, we'll hold Shift, we'll press D, right click, we'll move this up. Move this back. Here like that. These pieces here, I'm gonna left click, press L. I'll delete this. I'm gonna press L, delete these. I'll press L. Move that back so that's not constantly in the way. I'll take the hand to pan. Left click to deselect. I'll move this up. We'll hover here. Press L. Hold Shift. Press D. Right click. We'll move this up here. Move this here. Hold Shift. Press D. Right click. Move this here as well. This in something like that. Hold Shift, press D, right click. Move this up here like this. Hold Shift, press D, right click. Move this to the side like that. I'm going to move this to the side even more. this. No, left click to deselect. Okay, I moved this to the side more because I phase select. I like mechs that are on a smaller scale compared to a person. So I'm thinking this is the cockpit right here. So I want that part to be bigger. So I'm selecting here to pull this out. So I'll select here as well as here. Pull that out like that. I'll select here, press L. Put that out like that. Left click to deselect. So the way it is here, I mean, this is pretty small. So for the pilot to fit in there, be pretty small. So I'm going to select this. Pull this to the side. I'm going to press S to scale to make the whole thing bigger. Yes, I like that better. So we can select these pieces here as well. Press S to scale, make them bigger. So I'll left click to deselect. Okay, now is I think most of it was fun. However, we can have fun here. Most of our work is done. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the pieces that we have for the most part. We're going to select here, hold shift, press D, right click. Move this over here like this. We'll press S to scale like that. Move this in. We'll press R to rotate on the X-axis like this. Okay, I'll hold shift, press D, right click. Bring these up. So it's back like that. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'll hover here, press L, hold shift, press D, right click. It's over here like this. Move this forward like that. So you have to rotate to see where you're at in 3D space. I'll press S to scale. I'll take the hand, left click, as well as drag the pan, holding the middle mouse button, rotate. Take the hand to pan. Push this forward. move this. In place, I'll hold shift, press D, right click. Move this here, hover here, press L. To select that, I'll hold shift, press D, right click. Bring this back like that. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, when you look at our mech, a lot of the mech is very boxy. I kind of like boxy mechs. However, to emphasize the boxiness, it helps to have a design more curved surfaces. So what we're going to do is we're going to hover here, press L, hold shift, press D, right click, move this forward. We're going to press R to rotate on the Y axis 90, and then press enter to lock that in. I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view, zoom in, left click on nothingness to deselect, hover here, hold control, press R. I'm then going to left click once, left click a second time to lock that in. So this loop cut is still selected. What I'm going to do now is press V. Then I move my mouse. So when I pressed V, I ripped that edge right there. So I pulled this edge. I made this, by pulling that edge, this object, not this object, this part of the mesh is separate from that part of the mesh, which we want. So we're going to go to face select. We're going to hover here, press L to select just this piece. Then we're going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. We're then going to go to edge select. We're going to hold Alt, left click right on this edge right here. We want to make this totally straight up and down. So to do that, we can press S to scale on the Y axis 0, and then press enter to lock that in. Then I'm going to, well, for now, I'll left click to deselect. Okay, with that done, we'll zoom back. We're actually going to hover here, press L, hover here, press L, press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. We'll hover here, press L, move this up. I'm manipulating the view so I can see where I'm placing this at. I press S to scale like this. So what I'm doing is scaling this down to basically take the place of what we had before. Okay, so we're moving this into position about like that. So I'm going to left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. We have edge select on. I'm going to hold Alt, select this edge, press E to extrude, right click to keep the extrusion in place. I'm going to pull this back like that. Then I'm going to left click to deselect. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to press O to turn on proportional editing. It didn't turn on. Probably pressed the wrong button. Here's O. There we go. We'll go up to this arrow, select here, select connected only. We'll go to face select. We'll select here, press G, press X, move this over to the side like that. I'll press O to turn that off. Now what I'm going to do is hold the mouse button to rotate, hold control, press R, left click, move the mouse back some, left click on nothingness to deselect, go to face select, select here. I'm going to pull this up like this. Then I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go to edge select. We can see this edge here. We can make this smoother. You want to be careful. You don't want to make any more changes as far as on the side here. I'm fine for the side here. What we're going to do is select here, hold Control, press B for bevel. Go like this. Then we're going to roll the mouse wheel to get about 5 segments. Then left click to lock that in. Then I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, so we won't be able to adjust the side easily now. We will be able to still adjust the top. Okay, so we're going to continue rounding out some more of our mech. So we look here, we have the square here. So we're going to we're on edge select, we'll select here. We'll hold Control, press B. So I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Left click to lock that in. For the bevel, so I did Control B, and then I rolled my mouse 5 times. So now Blender should remember the bevel, which is useful. And I go to the hand to the upper right to move this up, and then I hold Control, press B. So now when I bevel, I already have those 5. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at like the top of the shape, and I'm just by my eyes trying to have it match up basically. I just left click to deselect. So now we're about to do, the plan is to do the same thing we did here to here. Okay, so I'll hold the mouse button to rotate. Left click here, hold Control, press B. And when I do this, I'm like looking at that circular piece of mesh. That's kind of how I'm gauging, how much bevel I'm going to put on. So I said the plan was to do here as well as here. I actually like this. I like how it's round here, but not round there. So I'm going to leave that in there. Okay, so we did this side. However, this doesn't have, this shape. So what we're going to do is we'll go to face select. We'll hover here, press X to bring up our delete menu, choose faces to delete. We'll hover here, press L, hold shift, press D, right click, take the move tool, and then just push this into place on the other side. So when I say into place, I'm pushing this far enough so that I'm trying to push so that there's enough, a small amount of space in between here as well as here. Like I don't want it being the piece that I'm currently selected being like pushed into there. So I'll left click to deselect. Okay, so I'm going to zoom back. Again, we have this very square right here. So we can pretty much do the same thing very easily. So I'll select here, hold Control, press B, left click to lock in. And then what I'm doing is I'm looking here. I'm like, this comes up to about here. So I'm thinking that as I go to here, so now I hold Control, press B, and then left click. Left click on nothing. I left clicked on nothingness to deselect. So because we have the mirror, we have that done on both sides. Okay, I'm going to zoom back. I'll go to face select. Some of these shapes like here, I'm going to press L, select here, press L, select there, press L. I'm going to press X to bring up our delete menu, then choose faces to delete. We have those shapes on our mesh, so if we need them, we can just take them from the mech we're working on. I'm going to zoom in, go to edge select, select this edge. I'm going to hold Control, press B. I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Left click to lock that in. Left click on nothingness to deselect. Looking here, I'm thinking as well bevel this as well. Control B. Left click to deselect. Did that because I'm thinking, well, if we're going to have it be smooth, we might as well try to have it, be smooth here as well as there. All right, so we need this side to be like this side, right? So we'll go to face select, hover here. Let me press Alt A just to make sure I'm not selected on anything. I'll press L to bring up our, L to select, X to bring up our delete menu, choose faces to delete. Hover here. Well, I hovered there, I pressed L, right? I'm going to hold shift to press D. And then I'm going to right click. So I duplicated geometry. It doesn't look like it did anything, but the old geometry is directly on, the new geometry is directly on top of the old geometry. So what I want to do is I want to mirror this, right? So I'm going to go to Mesh, Mirror, X Local. So now that mirrored object is mirrored, or that object is now mirrored. So now I'll push this into place on the other side. It's nice. I'm not sure how long that's been at Blender. I like it though. So I just position that, then I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm looking at the shading to see if that looks right to me. This is Blender 2.83. There's all kinds of new things in here. Blender 2.8, there's all kinds of new stuff just in Blender 2.8. I mean, compared to years of before 2.8, 2.8 was such a major change. Anyway, see how the shading here looks strange. So normally, in the past, I remember I would say, okay, are the normals correct on this? Now, what you can do to see if normals are correct, it's very easy to do. You'll go to the upper right, this overlay, select there, and then you go down to geometry and you go to this face orientation, put a check mark so we can see here that the normals aren't right here. The normals aren't right there as well. It's very nice. Actually looks nice. So what we can do is we can hover here, press L. Can we, well, we'll go to, is it here, face? Looking for, maybe it's under mesh. Normals, there we go. So let's do recalculate normals. We can see the shading change. Now when we go back, turn this on again, that's good. This we'll deal with. We're going to actually replace this. Won't take long. Yeah, I really like that that way of seeing normals. Very nice. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button and rotate. We need to deal with this right here. I'm going to go to the these tools on the right, left click the hand, then drag down. Then I'm going to left click on the plus, then move up. These controls are nice for numerous reasons, as well as being able to do a smooth zoom is it's nice. You can rotate as well as there. Anyway, I'm going to zoom in more. What I'm trying to get to is right here. Whoops, not there. So I'm going to do Shift B to zoom in more. See this right here? So I'll go to Edge Select. So I'm going to select this edge. I'm holding Shift, then I'm going to select this edge. Then I'll press F to fill that there. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Not that. Hold Shift, press B. Draw a zoom box to zoom in here. Roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I will select here, hold shift, select there, then press F to fill. Okay, I'll zoom back. I think width height. So what we're going to do now is we're at edge select still. If you look to the upper left, you can see what we're on. I'm going to hold Alt, left click, right? When you do this, when I say this, what I mean is select a loop. When I was holding Alt and then I selected the edge that allowed me to grab this loop. If you look over to the right, if you look beneath my mouse, see near the bottom of Blender where you see verts 8, that what says verts colon 8, that 8 is how many vertices we currently have selected. That's important because that will allow us to fairly easily use grid fill to fill this in. So I'll hold Control, press F. This brings up our faces menu. Then I can select grid fill. So now that's filled in for us. So I'm going to left click to deselect. I'm going to hold Alt, press A to totally deselect. Okay, we're on edge select. I'm going to hold Alt. I left clicked on that edge. Now I look and I can see we have 8 vertices, which means that grid fill should work. So we'll hold Control, press F. This brings up our faces menu. We'll select grid fill. I'm going to left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. So we select here. I'm going to go to face select. Hover here, press L. I'm going to hold shift, press H. So shift H allows, shift H has things set up so that we only see what we're currently selected on. So this makes it easier for us to work here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm looking at this shape, right? I want to fill that in. My thoughts are basically I want to do this as relatively easily as possible. So I'm going to go to edge select. I'll select here, right? So my thoughts here are, okay, this is 2 edges. This is, nice, easy. What I'll do is I'll press F to just fill that, right? So now by doing that, I'm thinking I have to deal with this as one section. This is another section. So what I did here kind of simplifies the issue of filling in those spaces. Okay, so my thoughts here are hopefully the vertices will be even. We're still on edge select, so I'll hold Alt, left click. The verts are 10. That's excellent. That's excellent because I should be able to use grid fill. So I'll hold Control, press F. This brings up our faces menu, or our face menu, I should say. I'll select grid fill. So then that's filled in for us. As far as working with this, I left clicked to try to select nothing. Still have the edge there. I'm going to hold Alt, press A to totally deselect. As far as the topology, you want to have your topology be good. There's no reason to not have it, to try to have it be as good as you can get it relatively as far as speed is concerned. This being a mech and this being a hard surface object, because this would not be, even with a rig, this would not be set up to bend its different pieces. The topology isn't as important as when you're doing with something that is organic. I'm going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. Okay, I'm going to hold Alt, left click on that edge. The verts are 6 verts, which are even, which is excellent. Hold Control, press F. This brings up our face menu. I'll select Grid Fill. These edges are kind of bunched up there, so I'll go to this Grid Fill menu to the left. I pressed 2. This is better than having those edges bunched up. Depending on how the span is set as well as the offset, you can adjust how your geometry that's made for you from Grid Fill is set up. So I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, I'm going to roll my mouse wheel to zoom back. Geometry looks like it's filled in. I rolled the mouse wheel to zoom back more. I am going to hold Alt, then press H to bring back the previously hidden geometry. Then I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, I'm going to roll the mouse wheel back, hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'll zoom back again. I'm going to hold Shift, right click to put the 3D cursor right there. Put the 3D cursor right there because objects in Blender tend to come into Blender where the 3D cursor is at. I want to bring in a cube. I'm going to hold Shift, press A. This brings up our Add To menu. I'm going to select Cube. Okay, the reason why I brought this cube in, I want to replace these. This would basically be the cockpit for the pilot. This shouldn't be that long. I think this would look better. I brought this out to the side because we're inside of a mesh with a mirror modifier on it. It seems easier to show it to you by bringing the cube in like this. So what we need to do with the cube is to cut the cube in half and then push the cube together. The clipping will make the cube fit together. Then we'll work this cube, work with the cube to make it into the new cockpit, right? We need to get rid of this half. There's numerous ways we could do it. Often in Blender, the way that you choose to work with something is I'm just rolling the mouse wheel in, holding the middle mouse button to rotate. It's just how you choose to go about it. A lot of times when I choose to do something, it's because of speed. Sometimes when I'm doing a tutorial, I'll do certain things a certain way because it is a tutorial. So I'm going to hold Alt, press A to deselect. I'm going to hover here, hold Control, press R, then put a loop cut in. I'll left click once, left click a second time to lock that loop cut in. Sometimes when I think about things like simple things like this, it makes me laugh as far as making tutorials, because sometimes people will leave comments and they'll say something like, "You explain things too much. The tutorials are so long. They're so long. You explain too much." Other comments will go, "You didn't explain enough. You didn't say exactly what you did. You said you would say everything and you skipped things here." So I do try to listen to the comments. Some of the comments have been excellent. Like somebody had said before, they were like, when you click a button, look to the left. Say like where you're at because you'll look down at the keyboard. So say like up towards the upper left or the upper right, which I try to do. Anyway, just thoughts coming to my head as I go through this. When I first started making, I'm going to try not to speak too much here. I just, like, as far as like even simple things like telling you how to divide a cube, the reason why I sit there and I am showing you, like, when I'll say like this is one way to divide a cube. When I first started making Blender tutorials, I used to watch tutorials. I got frustrated because I was like, why doesn't somebody explain things like this? There's many tutorials that I have seen where people have done, I think, an excellent job explaining. For myself, one of the things that makes me work through tutorials is when I learn something, I like saying, okay, this will be done in a way where it is explained in a way that I like things to be explained. So if things are quote unquote like over explained, it's part of my reason for wanting to do tutorials in the first place. I want them to be explained to deal with like that frustration I had in the past. Anyway, let's continue on. I'm going to go to face select. I'm going to hold Alt, left click, press. No, I'm not. I'm going to hold Shift and select this side. I'm going to press X to bring up the delete button, and then choose faces to delete. So now we have this cube. I'll press L. I push the cube towards itself. So now the cube is in the center, right? The clipping won't let the cube pass itself. So now what I do is I left click off the cube, and then I will reselect the cube again. So now when I go to, if I wanted to pull the cube apart, as long as this clipping is turned on, the cube will work like a cube. Okay, so what we're going to do is basically look at this piece right here. I like the size that this is. Just I wanted to change the design. So I'll select, I'll just roll the mouse wheel. I'll bring this out to the front. So I'm using this, you know, basically as a guide. That's about the same as this. So I hovered over this. I pressed L, I pressed X to bring up the delete menu. Choose faces to delete. Okay, I'll hover here, press L. I'll push this down into position. My thoughts here are I want this to be basically even with this here. I do want this to be higher, so I'll pull this not too much higher, like that. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm holding the middle mouse button to rotate. I'm gonna hold Control, press R to put a loop cut in. I'll left click once. Because I left click once, I moved the loop cut somewhat forward. I left click to lock that in. I put that loop cut there because I want this to bend down this front. So by putting a loop cut in, the loop cut will bend. When I push here, it'll bend right to there instead of bending from the back. So I have the edge select on, so I'll select the front. I'll push this down, right, like that. Okay, so what I want from here now is I'm going to go to face select. I want there to be like an indent here, right? So I'm going to select here. I'll press E to extrude, right click. I'm going to hold shift, press B, draw a zoom box to zoom in here. Now, did I press E to extrude? Yep, I did. Okay. So now I extrude this in, right? Now I'm going to press E to extrude again, right click, push down some like this. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, extrude again. Now when I'm pressing the E to extrude, when I do that, I'm making new geometry, right? A lot of what I did, what you just saw me do, I'm making this space right here. So when you're dealing with mechanical things, a lot of times it makes things look better to have like spaces in between. I think it helps to make things look like they've been mechanically made. Okay, I want to pull this edge up here, so I need to make new geometry. So I'll press E to extrude, right click. This plane that's on top of the old plane, I want to be able to grab this edge, so I'll take the move tool, pull up slightly, go to edge select. I pull it up so I could grab this edge more easily. I'm holding the middle mouse button so I can get a view so that when I pull up, I can see basically what I'm doing. So now I have this. So this piece right here is kind of like, I'm thinking like, here's the cockpit, right? The pilot can use this to see out of, basically. So I'm going to left click to deselect. Still have that edge select. I'm going to hold, or that edge, hold Alt, press A to totally. Is that? Yeah. I'm zooming back some by rolling that middle mouse button. Okay, so I actually want this to be smaller. I should be able to grab right here. Push this to the side. Yep. Excellent. I think even more so. There we go. So this piece looks like it's scaling. I'm pushing towards the mirror modifier. So that's why I don't have to press S to scale this. I can just push this way to have that scale. Now left click to deselect. Because I look at this, I actually want this to not be that tall. So I'm going to select here, hold shift, select here. So by moving these planes up, I can make this not as tall. So I'm on face select. I left clicked on nothingness, deselect. I'll hover here, press L. I'm pushing this down. The reason why I'm pushing this down is I'm generally looking at the height of this compared to that. So I'll left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hover here, hold shift, press B, draw a zoom box to zoom in, roll the mouse wheel to zoom back some, hold the middle mouse button to rotate, select here, press E to extrude, right click, and then I'm going to press S to scale. Like that. I'll take the move tool, then move this up like that. Okay, I'm going to hold the mouse button, rotating just to get a better view of looking backwards. I'll press E to extrude, right click, move this back like that. I'll left click to deselect. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. Looking at the distance between these two, so I'll hover here, press L, push that down slightly, left click to deselect. So one thing I'm thinking is to have this thing be able to move, it should be able to tilt forward. So we should give it probably decent amount of space so it can move accordingly. So I'd like the levels that the things are at. I just pressed L to select all these things. So I want it to have enough room so it can, I'm just thinking of it maneuvering around. So I'm going to left click to deselect. Okay, so most of the work for this is done. So I think, and the reason why I'm saying that is I want to bevel. Here, once you bevel, it's harder to, I think, to work as far as putting loop cuts, things like that. And when you're, for the most part, satisfied with something, I think that it's easier to bevel then. I'm going to hold Control, press B. It's interesting because see that bevel, how it's going towards that line. You want to be careful with things like that. So I left click to deselect. I didn't want this to be a smooth bevel. I wanted similar to what you see here. I'm going to go to face select, holding the middle mouse button, taking a look at this. These right here are basically going to be accessories, things that can be added onto the mech. So think of this as being like the main mech body. These things that we're going to work on as being attachments that can be switched out depending on what the role that this mech is going to be used for. I'm going to go to the upper right, use the hand to pan up. Missile launchers are fairly easy to make. They're also pretty quick. I'm going to hover here. So I'm hovering here. I'll press L, right click, select subdivide. We'll go up to our pivot point settings. Blender's default pivot point is median point. We'll change this to individual origins. I'll left click to deselect. I'm going to select here, hold shift to select these 4 faces. I'll roll the mouse wheel to zoom in. Select the hand to the upper right to pivot. I want these to extrude individually. So with that individual origins, this is important, this individual origins being set, I'll then hold Alt as well as pressing E. So I didn't do a regular extrude. It was Alt E that I pressed. That brought up this menu. So then I'll select extrude individual faces. I'll right click. Because of this, as well as doing the Alt E, I can press S to scale in like this. So this makes up basically where the missiles would come from. I'm holding them in a mouse button to rotate. So with that set, we'll press E to extrude again, right click. We'll bring this back. Be careful about this line right here. I don't think I passed that line. You can push up as well. So I have these faces here still selected, right? These faces here, I'm talking about the faces that are in here. They're important because what I can do is hold shift, press D, right click to duplicate them, right? So now I have a duplicate of these faces here. So I'll hold them in a mouse button to rotate. I'm going to right click, select subdivide, right? I'll subdivide again. So with these 4 faces selected, I'll right click, I'll go to loop tools. And this loop tools, by the way, is an add-on. This is included in the default version of Blender. So when you download Blender, you have this, right? It's inside of Blender. It just needs to be turned on. So you've got to edit, user preferences, put a check mark next to loop tools. So it's useful, it being loop tools, particularly for things like this. There's many uses. However, this circle in particular. So when I do that, we have these circular shapes, right? So what I can do now is I can press E to extrude, right click. So now, in a sense, I have missiles. They'll fit into, where we just, what we just made there. So I'll left click to deselect. Okay, so what I'll do now, we're still on face select, is I'll press C for paint select. Paint these faces here. I pressed the middle mouse button to deselect what that other geometry that I didn't want. I'll right click. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press E to extrude, right click, right? Because we have this individual origins, I can work with all of these faces. I shouldn't say faces, because there's multiple faces in these different pieces of mesh. I can work with them as far as scaling on their own at the same time, if that makes sense. So I made new geometry by extruding. So each of these has their own new geometry there. So with that new geometry, I'll press S to scale down like this. I'll left click. So now I can bring this out. Hopefully you can see where we're going with this. I'll press S to scale. So this is what's making this possible, by the way. So depending on how you want the missiles to look, I mean, you could add more detail With these selected, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hold Control, press L to select all of our missiles now. Okay, I would like for these to be thinner. So what I can do is I'll hold Alt, I'll press S. Then I'm going to hold Shift for fine selection. So I'm able to make these not as thick. I'll left click to lock that in. So that was Alt S. Holding Shift allowed me the fine control. So because we pulled these out from the faces that were inside, what we can do is just push them. They'll go right back in fairly nicely. I'll left click to deselect. I'm holding the mouse button, taking a look. I want to put a kind of like a extra geometry here. So what I'll do is I'll hold Control, press R, left click, because I left click one time. I can move this loop cut. I'll move this up to about here. I'll left click to lock that in. I'll go to the upper left, go to Face Select. I'll hold Alt. I will left click here with this ring of faces selected. I'll go to Face and then solidify faces. So now I can, using this menu to the left, bring that out. So yeah, I like how that looks. Just roll the mouse wheel to zoom back, holding the mouse button, taking a look. Okay, for this, what I'm actually going to do is press C, get pieces of this, right click to go out of paint select. So because I have those pieces of mesh, I'll hold Control, press L. That allows me to select that whole piece right there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to separate this into its own object. I'm going to do that by pressing P. This brings up our separate menu, and then I'm going to choose by selection. So now that is its own object. Okay, we're going to go to our upper left hand corner. We're going to go to object mode. We're going to go to we're going to left click on nothingness to deselect. There we go. Because it's upper right hand corner, this is our collections menu. All of the objects that we have so far are currently in this collection. When you start to make Blender objects in Blender, by default, they go into this collection. So what we want to do is make another collection to put this object in. So we'll right click, select new collection. This collection too is the new collection we made. We'll double click here. We'll name this more parts. We'll press enter to lock that in. So now we'll select this object. Then we'll press M to bring up our collection manager. We'll look towards this white box. This is where the object currently is at. It's in our main collection. We're going to left click here. So now when I left click there, you see how this box is no longer highlighted. This box is highlighted. So when I move my mouse off of this menu, the menu will disappear. Now this this object is in this collection called more parts. So now I'm choosing to deselect it. Doesn't matter. The next step I'm about to do doesn't matter if it's selected or not. However, what I would want to do is I want to go to this more parts, and I'm going to hide that more parts collection. So now with that done, I'll select our mesh, go back to the upper left, then go back to edit mode. Okay, I want to make another thing for our mech. So what I'm going to do is I'm hovering over this. I'm going to select that. I'll move this out to the side. I'm going to press R to rotate on the y-axis, 9, 0. Press enter to lock that in. I'm going to press S to scale on the z-axis like this. Move this in like this. Hold shift, press D, right click. Move this down like this. So it's up to the side. I'll press S to scale. Then I'll press S to scale on the Z axis like this. It's kind of what I did here. If you're like, why'd you do that? I did that. It's kind of a way of getting things fatter and just a different way of making them more thick. Press S to scale in the loop. S to scale on the Z axis. There we go. I'll press S to scale that down some. Like that. I'll hold shift, press D. I'll right click. Move this out to the side like that. I'll zoom back. I'll press R to rotate on the Y axis, 9, 0. Left click to lock that in. Move this up like this. Press S to scale like that. I'll hover here. Move this out. Press S to scale it up. Wanted that to be somewhat thicker. Okay, so this is going to be the basis for arms for us. We'll come back to this. So I just paint select it by pressing C. I'm going to right click. I'll hold control, press L to let me select all of that. I'll hold shift, press D, right click. We'll move this off to the side. Let's make a gun. I'm going to hover here, press L, press S to scale on the Z axis like this. Bring that down. Slightly over like that. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. Left click to deselect. We're on face select. I'll press C for paint select. I'll left click here. I'll right click. I'm going to go to this pivot point and change this up to the top middle of the screen. I'm going to change this from individual origins back to the medium point, which is Blender's default pivot point. Okay, with this area selected, I'll press E to extrude, right click. I'll press S to scale. Then I'm going to press E to extrude again, right click. And I'll pull this up some. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to hover here, press L, L, L. I'm going to press H to hide that just to get that out of the way. I'm going to hold control, then hold the right mouse button to draw a lasso select. So I held control. I also held the right mouse button, and that allowed me to do a lasso select. Now we have pieces of this to select the entire mesh. We want to hold control, then press L. Now we'll press shift, then hold D. Then we'll right click to get that to stay in place. We'll move this over here like that. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. We're going to press R to rotate on the x-axis 9, 0, and then press enter to lock that in. One of the nice things about making mechs is, I'm going to push this over here, is once you have your main pieces made, I find that actually is a benefit. It's a help to reuse parts. I find that it is actually a benefit as far as the design, having using repeating parts as well. So I move that into position. I'm gonna hold shift, press D, right click. I'm gonna move this to the other side like that. Okay, I'm gonna hold the mouse button to take a look. I actually want this to flip. So this is Y right here. This is the Y axis from front to back. So with this selected, what we can do is we'll go to mesh, mirror, Y local. So now this flipped. So we'll move this like that. Hold them in the mouse button, taking a look. Now left click to deselect. I'm going to get to the hand to pan to the side. I'm going to hover here, press L, hold shift and press D, right click, bring that back, left click on nothingness to deselect, hover here, press L, press S to scale up, pull back some, select here, drag that back like that, select this face here, drag this forward like that, left click on nothingness to deselect. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button, rotate, hover here, press L. I'm going to press S to scale on the X axis, S to scale on the Z axis, S to scale on the Y axis. Like that. I'm going to push this forward, down. Hold shift, press D, right click. Push that forward like that. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel back. Hold shift, press D, right click. Move this forward like this. Hold shift, press D, right click. Move this up like this. Push that forward like that, then left click to deselect. I'm going to hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to zoom back already. I'm going to press C for paint select. Select most of this here. I'll right click to get out of paint select. Press C. I'm just trying to get a piece of the different pieces of the mesh. Press C for paint select. Because I have a piece of the mesh, I can hold control, press L. So I'll zoom back. So now I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis, and I'll bring this forward like this. Oh, I lost a piece. So hold the middle mouse button to take a look. Okay, so this is, basic gun. You could iterate, change it more. Look at it. I think I'm gonna select this, bring this up, bring this forward. Like that. I'm gonna hold control, hold the right mouse button to draw a lasso select. Hold control, press L. So now I'll do, I'll hold control as well as the right mouse button, another lasso select. And I'll hold control, press L, roll the mouse button to zoom back, hold the middle mouse button to rotate. Now I'll press C, select here, hold control, press L, press C again, hold control, press L. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the P key, which brings up our separate menu. I'm then going to choose selection. So now that is its own separate object. Okay, what we're going to do now is I'm going to go to the hand to pan. I'm going to go to the upper left, go to object mode, select this object. I'm then going to press the M key to bring up our collection manager. Select here. So because that collection is hidden, the the guns disappeared. So now we'll select here. Go to edit mode. So we'll work on these arms. Before that, we'll left click on nothing. This to deselect. I'll hover here. Hold shift, press D, right click. Press S to scale on the Z axis. Now press S to scale that down. S to scale on the Z axis. Press this down like that. I'm going to push this over here. S to scale on the Z axis. I'm going to hover here, press L, hold shift, press D, right click. If you're wondering why I'm doing this now, it's because we had that in that going up and down. So it's like, take advantage of that. Alt H. Okay, there we go. I was like, what happened to the piece that was there? It was previously hidden. This still works out. So I'm going to hover here. Press L, press L. Move this and move that up some. I'm going to hover here, press L. I'm going to press S to scale on the Z axis. Move that back some, or move that in position. However, I moved it like that. Yeah. Press X to bring up the delete menu, and then choose faces to delete. It's not visible enough, I think, to have it there. Okay, what we're going to do with this is I'm going to hover here, press L, press L, press L. Move this over towards position like that. I left click to deselect. We're going to hover here. Press L, hold shift, press D, right click. Move this out to the side like that. Okay, I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis 90, then left click to lock that in. R to rotate on the Z axis 90, and left click to lock that in. We'll move this like this, press S to scale. I scaled it down slightly right there. Okay, rotate it to the side. So move that back like that. Maybe we'll pull this out to the side slightly. We're going to go here, press L, L as well as L. We're going to hold shift, press D. We're going to right click, move this to the side like that. I'm gonna hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'm gonna press R to rotate on the x-axis like that. Move this down into place like that. I'll left click to deselect. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button to rotate the view. I'm going to select here, press E to extrude, right click, push this out like this. Then what we're going to do is go to edge select, select that edge right there, hold control, press B to bevel. Then we're going to put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cuts or segments. I'm going to left click to lock that in. So when I counted, I was rolling my mouse. So I left click. I'm going to left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, I'm going to go to face select, press C for paint select. I rolled my mouse to make the mouse bigger. Right click, hold the middle mouse button to go to the other side. Press C for paint select again. Right click. I am going to hold control, press L. Move this up. In something like that. Then left click to deselect. Okay, let's make him some hands. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel back, hold shift. I'm going to right click. When I held shift and right clicked, I put the 3D cursor there. In Blender, where the 3D cursor is at, where objects tend to come into Blender at, I'm going to hold shift, press A, bring in a cube. So here's our cube. I'm going to take the hand to pan. Press S to scale in the X-axis like that. I'll right click, select subdivide. Then I'll hold control, press R, put a loop cut here, left click. I left click twice, I left click to deselect, hold control, press R, left click once, left click a second time to deselect, left click on nothingness to try to deselect. I'll go to face select now. Okay, what we're going to need here is to go to, held the middle mouse button to rotate. We're going to go to the pivot point options, change this from Blender's default pivot point, which is the median point, to individual origins. We're on face select. We're going to select here, hold shift, select these faces here. With those faces selected, we're going to hold Alt, press E. This brings up our extrude menu. We're going to select extrude individual faces. We're going to left click. On that, right click, press S to scale this down. I'm going to press Shift D. So there's a slight separation. Push that slightly forward. I'm going to press E to extrude, right click. Slightly forward like that. I'll press S to scale that down like that. Be aware the current plan is to have this mech have a 2-finger hand, not a 3-finger hand. However, I'm going to show you the 4-finger hand. That's the plan right now. So I didn't want those to come out quite that far. So I'm going to hold shift, press D, right click. This would be the first part of the fingers. We'll press E to extrude. Push that out like that. Hold shift, press D, right click. Press E to extrude. Hold shift, press D, right click. Push these out. E to extrude, right click. There we go. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hold them the mouse button to rotate the view. I'll hover here, press L, hold shift, press D, right click. Bring this out like this. Press S to scale. Zoom in. I'll go to the hand. I'll press S to scale on the X-axis like that. So then I'll hold shift, press D, right click, move this over, hold shift, press D, right click, move that over, hold shift, press D, right click, move that over as well. Left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna hover here, press L, press L, press L, press L, hold them in the mouse button to rotate. Hold shift, press D, right click. I rotated the view just to get a better, so I could see myself putting these in a position. Hold shift, press D, right click. Move those into position, left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna roll the mouse wheel back, hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view, press C for paint select. Select this right here, hold them in the mouse button to get rid of that. I have pieces of the mesh, so I can hold Control, press L, hold Shift, press D, right click, bring this out to the side like this, bring this back like that. Okay, we need to go to the top, change the pivot point from individual origins back to median point. I'm going to push this out to the side. I'm going to press R to rotate on the Z-axis, -90, and then press Enter to lock that in. Okay, as far as the position of this is good as far as rigging. Keeping the thumb out like that. So if you're working, trying to make a hand that looks decent, you might want to keep one thumb like this, duplicate it, put it somewhere else, then pose a different thumb. I'm gonna run face select, press C for paint select. Move that out somewhere like that. Then I'm gonna press E to extrude, right click. I'm going to press S to scale that down some. I'm going to left click deselect. Another thing, as far as rigging, you do not want to have the fingers be lined up like this. If you're thinking about rigging in the future, what I'm going to do now is I want the fingers to not be quite this long. So I'm selecting pieces of the mesh. I'm going to hold Control, then press L. Okay, I'm going to press S to scale on the Y axis, like that. I'll hold them in the mouse button to rotate the view. I'll pull these back like that, then left click to deselect. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back, hold them in the mouse button to rotate, press C for paint select. As I'm selecting just the front, so I'll hold Control, press L to select the rest of the mesh. I'll press S to scale on the X axis like that. I'll zoom in, pull that to the side like that, then left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna take the hand, pan down, zoom in. I'm on face select, so what I'm gonna do is press C for paint select to select here. Don't want that, so I press C. I click to get out of, right click to get out of paint select. I'm pressing C for paint select, hold them in the mouse button. To deselect, I want to deselect here, so I'm going to hold Shift, select there, still holding Shift as well as there. I'm going to hold Shift, press D, right click. Move this up. like this. I'm going to hold Control, press R, left click once, left click a second time to lock that in, then left click on nothingness to deselect. Okay, I'm going to hover here, press L. I put this extra line in because I want to extend this out some. One of the useful things about the solidify faces, you can make a shape like this, then you can go to face and then go to solidify faces. This direction I want. Then you can have this shape right here. See how the normals look weird? Normals are the directions the polygons face, by the way. I'm going to hold Control, press L. I think when I did that explanation before, I didn't say that. When normals are facing the right direction, they're kind of like how you would expect normals to face when they are not facing the right direction. They're not what's expected. Blender shows you that strange shading kind of to help you out. So I'm going to go to face. Must be mesh. Normal. There we go. We'll select. Okay, so Shift N is recalculate normals. I'm going to left click, so now the normals look correct. I'm going to move this up some like that. I'm going to select. I'm going to go to upper left. Left click on nothingness. Try to deselect. I'll go to face select. I'll select here. Hold Shift. Select these faces here, push that out like there. I'll go to edge select, hold on, select here. I'll just even out that geometry there. Now left click on nothingness to deselect. I'll go to face select, hover here, press L. I want this to be quite like that long, so I'm gonna held Shift. I'm just yeah, there we go. That's much better. Left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna, while I'm hovering over this, press L. Move that back some like that. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. Move that down some like that. I'm gonna roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. Left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm gonna hold Control, hold the right mouse button to do a lasso select. Hold Control, press L to select all of the geometry. I thought, even look at this, I don't have this selected, so I'll select that. I right click to get out of paint select, hold Control, press L. Now I'm going to press R to rotate on the X axis 9, 0, and then press Enter to lock that in. I'm going to hold the middle mouse button. One of the things you're going to want to do, most likely anyways, press C for paint select. Select this geometry here, right click, hold Control, press L. I'm going to go to front view. I'm going to hold Shift and then right click right here to put the 3D cursor there. I'm going to go up towards the top middle screen. Select the pivot point and change this to 3D cursor. Now what this is going to allow us to do is I can press R to rotate because we're in the front view. I can turn that finger out to the side like that, right? So I'm going to left click to deselect, hold Shift, right click. I put the 3D cursor there, so I'm going to use that as a pivot point. Press C for paint select, select part of the mesh, hold Control, press L to select the rest of the mesh. Then I'll press R to rotate, like I did with the other finger. Then I'll left click to deselect. Okay, normally you would do the same thing for the other fingers. However, I only want 2 fingers, so I'm going to select these pieces of the fingers as well as these pieces here. I'm going to right click to get out of paint, select hold control, press L to select the rest of that connected geometry, press X to bring up our delete menu, and then choose faces to delete. Okay, I'm going to hold shift, select there, press C for paint select, try to select there, I got it, I think. Right click, what am I doing? I want just the one finger. Hold control, press L. So I can pull that in some. Left click to deselect. Left click on nothingness to deselect. Right click to get out of paint select. Hold control, press L. Push that in some like that. Left click to deselect. Okay, I'm going to zoom back. Go to the hand, pan to the side. I want the size of a human basically to be like from here to like here. All right. So I'm going to hover here. I hovered there, press L, L, L. I'll press C for this. I'll hold control, press L to select that. I'm going to press up. I'm still on the pivot, the 3D cursor. I'll change this to medium point, which is Blender's default pivot point. Shrink this down some. Move this over like that. Left click to deselect. Okay, so as far as this, I'm going to hover here, press L. So you can imagine like this being like the shape of a car if you're, going for like the kind of perspective. If you want to understand like the kind of perspective I'm going for. I'm going to press C for paint select. I'm going to try to select this. For this, I'm going to go to wireframe to select this geometry here. Right click, go back to solid view. I'll hold control, press L. To move that down some. Okay, I also want to, I'm going to go to top middle screen. I'm going to go to normal. And the reason why is I want to select these three faces because I want to elongate this leg. So I'm going to pull this up like that. Then I'm going to left click to deselect. I'm going to hold the mouse button. I'm going to rotate the view. I'm going to hold control, hold the right mouse button to try to select this geometry here. I'll hold shift, select that piece there. Then I'll hold control, press L. This piece right here, what I want is I'll hover here, press L as well. Look at that. Okay, I'm sorry. Hold control, hold the right mouse button. Select that. Control L. Hover here. Hold control, hold the right mouse button to select that. Control L. I want to extend the length of the leg. Thinking mainly, or more so anyway, about rigging. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm gonna hold Control, hold the right mouse button to select what we can see there, or hold Control L to select what we can't see. I'll press S to scale this down like that. Okay, I'm gonna move this over. I'm gonna go to the transform, set this back to global. I'll push this down, push this over, press S to scale that down more. Move that up like that. I'll left click to deselect. Okay, I'm gonna hover here, press L, hold Shift, press D, right click, move this up, turn to the side. I'll press S to scale. Zoom in. That's the scale. Left click to deselect. Press C for paint select. Select what we can see on our hand. Hold Control, press L. Okay, we'll move this up. Go to the side. Move this forward. Hold the middle mouse button to rotate. There we go. Left click to deselect. I'm going to roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. I'm going to press C for paint select. Select this right here. Right click to get out of paint select. Press C for paint select. Right click. I'm going to hold Control, press L. Select these because I want them to generally be bigger. So I'm going to press S to scale them up. Like that. I'll push them down. Like that. Now left click to deselect. Alright, I'm going to edge select. I'm going to select this edge here, hold Control, press B. This, then I'm going to roll the mouse wheel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Left click to lock that in. Left click a second time to deselect. Gonna select here, hold Control, press B. This I don't think I want it bevel, so I'm taking the bevels actually out by rolling the other direction. So I'm looking at what we have. Okay, I'm going to hover here. I'm going to, not that, left click to deselect. I'll go to face select, I'll hover here. Press L, hold Shift, press D, right click. Press R to rotate on the Z axis 9, 0. Left click to lock that in, press S to scale. Back like that. I'll press R to rotate on the x-axis like this. Left click to deselect. And hover here, press L, hold shift, press D, right click, bring this back. Thinking about like something that hopefully wouldn't interfere with the legs, however would allow attachments to connect to the back of the mech. Left click to deselect. Okay, this what I'm going to show you here, I found this out the other day. I thought this was pretty neat. So what you want to do is select these ends here. Anything that you want to look like it has armor plating on it. I'm gonna right click to deselect, roll the mouse wheel to zoom back. Okay, I'll press C for paint select. Hold the mouse button to rotate the view. So we want this as well. Hold the mouse button to rotate the view. I'll press C for paint select this as well. This as well. This. I'll right click to get out of paint select. I'll hold shift. So I'll manually select here. I am going to hold the mouse button to rotate the view. Hold shift. This here. Okay, I'll zoom in. Use the hand rotate. Hold the middle mouse button. Press C for paint select. Select there. There. Hold the mouse button to deselect. Right click to get out of paint select. Okay, I'll select the hand to pan, zoom in. Press C for paint select. I'll select here. Right click to get out of paint select. Okay, I'm going to hold shift, select there as well. I'm going to zoom back. What we're doing is we're making plating. It's a slight thing. I think it adds a lot. Though we're going to go to the upper part of the middle screen. We're going to change our pivot point setting from Blender's default pivot point to individual origins. We're then going to hold shift, press D. I moved to the side just so I know I duplicated. I'm going to right click to get those duplicated planes back to their original position. Now I'm going to press S 0.95 and then enter. Now the reason why I did that was we're going to use solidified faces to bring this out. However, we want it to be not super obvious that we have like this plating look, but we do want people to notice it. Okay, so with that being said, we'll go to face, solidify faces. We want to go to -1. 0. There we go. We want to go to -0.1 is what we want. So then we're going to left click to deselect.